Hi, my name is Dan Goodman. I'm the founder of Robotic Arm Software. Today I'm going to show you a tool that I've been developing called Cocktail. I've worked in the video game industry for many years, and I've been an avid gamer for my entire life, including video games and board and card games. I've even developed some of my own card games, and I've used tools like Nandeck to do that. Now, I love Nandeck, and because I'm a programmer, I never had any problem with the scripting nature of that tool. But I've talked to other people who did not want to deal with writing a script to generate a card game. And so the idea of Cocktail was conceived. Let's get right into it. So this is the basic interface of Cocktail. You can see here there's a toolbar at the top, there's some menus for different things that you can do in the tool. This is an early pre-beta version of the tool. This is essentially just basic functionality. We have plans for developing this tool much further and adding a lot more functionality to this tool. But I just want to show you what we have right now. There are four main components to a Cocktail project. There's the project itself, which contains layouts, sets, and data sources. Layouts is where you create the design of your cards. For instance, here's an action card from a game that I developed quite a number of years ago with a friend of mine who did the artwork. And as you can see, it's relatively straightforward and simple. There are a few components to this card. There is an image in the center of the card, is sort of the portrait for the card. There's some text at the top of the card, which is basically the name of the card. There's a text description at the bottom of the card. There's this stamp image on the card denoting that it is an action card. And then there's just a few extra pieces to the card that are, rectangles or just highlights for different parts of the card. As you can see, at the left of the layout, there are a set of tools that you can use. There's a selection tool which basically just lets you go in and select all the different elements in the layout itself. There's a line tool that lets you draw lines, a rectangle tool that lets you draw rectangles, etc. There's also, to the right of the layout, this layer list, which lets you organize and select layers from within the layout and edit the properties on those layers, which you can see to the right of the layer list. And in here, for each different type of layer, whether it be text or image, a rectangle, or something else, there are a set of properties that you can set for that particular layer. Each of these properties has what I would call a design value, which is the value that is used to display what we see in the layout itself. And it can also have a data linked value. So for instance, on this image, which is used as the portrait, you can see here to the right side of the image file name, there is a little link button. And you can see most of these are crossed out here, except for the one for the image itself. And if we expand this, we can see that this is linked to something called image. And this is going to come from the data. There are a bunch of different things that you can link this to, but image is the one that makes sense based on what the data actually shows. And we'll take a look at that in a little while. All of these other things, every single property in here could be linked to a piece of data that comes from a Google spreadsheet, for instance. But in this case, only the image itself is the thing that's actually linked to the data. And that's going to be used in the export process or in the printing process. Let's quickly get into actually creating a new layout. Although there are several layouts in here, we're missing something from the original game, and that is a product card. So in order to get a product card added to our game, what we're going to do is we're actually going to first add a new data source, because the data source that we're using for all of the other cards actually only contains the data for the monkeys, the VPs, and the actions themselves. So we have a separate data source, a separate spreadsheet essentially, that has all of the product data in it. So what we'll do is we will go to the actual spreadsheet itself, and this is just a sample of basically what you could have as some of the data in your own spreadsheet that you would use to make your own games. But this has everything that we need to display on the card itself. There's the name of the card. There's an ID that is used in the export process. There's a card type, which is the same for all of these. It's all product, but we'll use that to distinguish from the other cards when we're building our decks. There's turns, engineers, initial, and residual, which are all just stats from the original game. And then there's an image, and this image is a relative path from the project file. So if I open up the folder, you'll see here we have this Monkey Business CTP file. This is the actual project file. Inside this we have an art folder which contains all of the artwork used in the game. We also have an export folder which is currently empty, and we have all of the other files that are related to the project, like the layouts. There's a set file, which is this deck.cts file, etc. What we'll do first is we're going to copy this big long string here from the actual spreadsheet address bar, and this long thing here after this d slash but before this slash edit, this is the actual ID of the spreadsheet. This is the thing that Google uses to identify a spreadsheet. For now, this is the way that we're going to add the spreadsheet so that we can have access to it from within Cocktail. Later on, we will be working on some additional controls so that we can make it easier to add data sources into Cocktail. So once we have the ID for the Google spreadsheet, what we can do is we can go to the toolbar here and we can click this button that says Add to Data Source on it. And that's going to allow us to input that spreadsheet ID. I'm going to hit OK here. And now we've got this Google Sheets 1 added as a new data source. And we're going to use that to generate our product cards. So I'm going to rename this product sheet. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and fill out this data here. There's an ID column, which is ID, a name column, which is name. And we don't have a layout yet because we haven't created one. There's also this layout map that allows us to map different values to different layouts using a specific column. And that's actually set up in the monkeys and actions. If we look here, the layout map says if it's an action, if the value is action in that column, in the card type column, then we use the action layout. If it's a monkey value, we use the monkey layout. If it's a VP value, we use the VP layout. So that's something that you can do. But for a product sheet, we'll just have to set the default layout because it's only for products. So it will only have a single layout for this particular data source, which is a little bit just simpler. So now we go up to the top again, and we say add a new layout. So I'm going to click that. And now we've got a layout called layout 3. And I'm just going to rename that to product. Okay. And I'm going to give this layout a width of 738 pixels and a height of 1033 pixels. And what this is doing is I'm basing this off of a 300 pixel per inch setting. So if you just take 738 and divide it by 300, you get 2.5, and you take 1033 divided by 300, you get 3.5 approximately. And we can zoom in, we can zoom out whenever we want to do whatever's easiest for us to work with the layout. And here I'm going to set the data source to product sheet, which is the data source we just added. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The reason behind this is that's going to help us fill out those drop-down boxes when we're setting up our layout and linking it to data inside the product sheet. Since we have this set up already, I'm just going to go back to product sheet really quick, and I'm going to set the default layout to product now that we've created that. I'm going to go ahead and save everything. It goes ahead and sets the layout file to product automatically. So I'm going to go and save it as that. And the data sources themselves are saved as part of the project, so those don't have a separate file. Now, since we have this layout, let's go ahead and start filling it out a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to select the rectangle tool, and I'm going to create a new rectangle. I'm going to give it a fill first. You can see at the top where the normal application toolbar is, there's an extra toolbar here right next to it. This is based on the currently selected tool in the layout. So you'll see all of these have their own separate properties that you can set. And this is going to be our default for this tool. So if I go to rectangle, I'm going to set the stroke thickness to 0 because we're not going to have a stroke. Stroke is like an outline around the rectangle. We're not going to use that. But we are going to have a fill. What I'm going to set is the fill as a specific color. It's going to be this kind of yellowish gold color. That's going to be our color for the products. And then I'm just going to start drawing like a rectangle and drag it. Now I can go to the properties for the rectangle because it's automatically selected here. And I'm just going to, set these so that it is right with our properties of exactly matching the size of the layout itself. It doesn't really matter because it's going to get clipped when it does the export, but I prefer to just match these. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create another rectangle. This time the fill is going to be, I'm just going to open up this color picker here and I'm just going to pick white. So that's easy. Do here, keep the stroke at 0. And this is going to be a rectangle sort of at the top where we're going to place our image, because the images have transparency in the background. So this is going to give us a white background for the image to be drawn on. And again, I'm going to select this and I'm just going to make it the exact dimensions I want it to be. I can drag these corners and resize this if I want, or I can rotate it however I like, etc. But I like to just set it to just the right height and width, just for accuracy's sake. Do something like that. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new image. and I'm going to put it essentially in the same area here. So I'm going to just kind of drag it out like this. I didn't select an image to use in the first place, so I'm just going to go ahead over here and I'm going to select an image so I can see what it's going to look like in the final version when it's exported. So let's take a look at something like this. So I can see how this doesn't quite fit exactly what I want. It's very, very close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, just make this exactly fit that right size. So this is off by like 1 pixel. You can barely even see it. And actually that's pretty much right. Just 1 pixel off. Okay. It still isn't exactly right. The reason is because this image doesn't perfectly fit into this aspect ratio of the rectangle that I've drawn. Okay, so in order to solve this problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say vertical alignment is bottom. So it starts at the bottom, it's sort of anchored at the bottom, and then stretches to the correct aspect ratio from there, so it fits inside this box correctly. Of course, we don't want to have this same image for every single card, so we're going to have to link this. So I'm going to go over here to the little link button and click that. I'm going to select direct to create a direct linking, and it's going to be linked to image, which is the column from the spreadsheet. And the reason why this is all filled out is because we selected the product sheet as our data source for this layout. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. I'm going to go ahead and, since we have plenty of room here, I'm just going to make this view of the layers a little bit bigger. And if we go to selection here, I select this image. That's the actual image itself. It's called image 8 right now. That's not a very descriptive name, and it's going to be a pain for us to search for that later on. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename that and call that portrait instead. That way the layer has a name that makes sense, and if we need to find it quickly in the layer view, we can do so. I'm going to create yet another image in this layout, and that's going to be for the highlight that goes behind the text. I'll do something like this. I'm going to select the image from the art folder, and I'm going to use this. It's called orange, but it looks pretty yellowish to me. Orange highlight orange.png file. And I'm going to go ahead and set the properties of these just so it's exactly where I want it to be. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put the name in there. So I'm going to go ahead and select the text tool, and I'm going to basically put it right over where the image was. Now this is obviously not the right font or the right size of font that we want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and change the font first, I think. And I'm going to change that to Kristen ITC. And then I'm going to change the size to around 45. And then I'm going to align that to the center. And I'm going to go ahead and link that text to the name. Could adjust all of these just to make it exactly what I want it to be, but I can go back later and change the positioning of all of this and size of all this stuff at any time. Let's go ahead and start adding some of the stats. So first I'll add the icons for the stats, and those are all image files. So I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to make kind of a place where the image is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. This is going to be the turns icon. Turns, this one here. And I'm going to set these up so that they're going to be exactly where I want them. I'm going to place them all first. And to make this easier on myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a default. So I'm going to make 4 little images down here at the bottom, something like this. This one's already the correct one. But I'm going to go through each of these and set them up. So this one is going to be the engineer's icon. And that's the little hammer. And then this is the initial bananas that you get for creating this product. So that's going to be the banana, and this is going to be the residual. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and set these all to be the right exact size and position that I want. So I want to be like 95 by 95, and I want that to be like 877 by 66. Yeah, and same thing here. It's already 877. Very close. Didn't do too bad. And then this one is going to be 877 by 387. This one's going to be 570. And all these are going to be 95 by 95, just to give them a consistent size and position, so they're spread out evenly. And they look good. So I've got all these icons here now. And if I go ahead and start adding in the actual stats next to the icons, here's what I'm going to do with that. Okay, I'm going to go to the text tool, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the font here because it's going to be the same for all of them. So go ahead and set this to, this is where I'm going to use marker felt. There it is, marker felt. And I'm going to set the font size. It's going to be pretty basic. It's going to be font size 90. And I'm going to go ahead and set the text too. Text is going to be 0. It's going to be 0, just like the, you know, so it's a number, so it looks correct when I actually place it. So we've got the text tool selected. I'm going to go ahead and put something here. It's a little bit off. The positioning isn't right, but on here, here, now that's a little bit better. Here. All right. So now for the positioning. So the top of these are all going to be 773, I think. 773, 773, 773, 773. Okay, 120 by 105. And let's just get this. 120 by 105. Okay, and what I'm going to do here for the turns text, first of all, let me get the left positioning right. So the left is going to be 53. but then I'm going to align it to the center. I'm also going to set the foreground here. I'm going to make this a red color. And do that for all of these. While I'm thinking about it. Okay. Center. 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 Okay. So this is positioned right. This one is a little bit off. Should be 225. 375. This one should be okay. So there we have that. Now we have to link these, obviously. So text is going to be direct link, and this is the turns. This one is a direct link to engineers. This one here is a direct link to initial, and this one is a direct link to residual. Okay, so the last thing is just the stamp, which is just a simple image. So let me go back to the images. You can go ahead and pick the stamp before I place it. It's going to be product. Here it is. Open that. I'm just going to drag this across here, get an idea of it. Okay, let me position that where I want it. 643. And let's see, 100. 538 by 212. Okay, now it's drawing over top of these. Let me go ahead and just rename this to stamp. It's drawing over top of the text, which is not what we want. So what we'll do is we'll go over here to the layer itself is selected, and I'm just going to move this down so it goes behind the text. Okay. That's basically our layout for the product cards. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save everything. Then I'm going to go down to Sets. I'm going to look at my deck. And as you can see, here's all of the potential cards that can be in your deck that you can print out. Okay? And you can see these can load on demand. And it just used the layout we just made to generate all of these product images. So you can go here and sort of preview what you're going to be printing a little bit or exporting. Okay. Now there are a couple of different options when you want to export or save out your final card images. You can do a simple export. There's two buttons up here. There's the export button right here, and then there's print. Now, we actually don't have a set made. There's nothing in our deck right now. This is just kind of the library of everything we could have. So the first thing we're going to do before we print is we're going to build a deck. So we do that basically by just clicking here and saying, okay, well, add this card to my deck. And we can go through and do it for each of these cards. And if you need more than one card, you can go ahead and put more cards here. Or you could do that over here as well. Say you need 10 marketing monkeys and 10 engineering monkeys, for instance, etc. You can do that right here, and that's going to export multiple copies or print multiple copies in a PDF or send to your printer, multiple copies of that card. Okay. And we can even, up here, as you can see, there's a filter. So we can select the filters to show just the cards that we're looking for. And it's generating this filter. So it's taking card type, it's just one of the columns in both spreadsheets. And it's using that as the filter. So there's a limit on the number of values and there's a limit on the length of the text in order for the filter to show up here. But we can go ahead and, filter this to show just the cards that we want. And so if we just want to look at products, or we just want to look at actions or monkeys or whatever we want to do, we can do that. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and save this deck and save that. And then the final step is either export or print. And if we export, I'll show you how that works. I'm going to go ahead and go into Cocktail MB Demo Export and hit OK. And it's exporting 75 images for deck set. Okay. To that folder. Okay, finished. You go ahead and open that and it'll open the folder. And so you can see here, it generated all these images and it generated duplicates for the things that we said we wanted more than one of. And everything is in here and you can take a look at those and they're the same size as they were in the layout. So the layout the pixel size should be duplicated here. All right, so that's one option, exporting that way. We can also print. So when we print, you can do print, and in this case, I'm just going to print to a PDF, so it's easy for us to take a look at the results first. Go ahead and print that. It's going through and generating the document for the whole deck. And this is what's going to get sent to the printer. All right, and then we're going to save the PDF file that's going to get generated. We're just going to call this, let's go up to the top level here, and we're going to call this MB underscore deck PDF. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And it's saving the document now for the PDF file. Okay, finish generation. So I'm going to hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to that folder, and you can see MB deck was just generated. And you can see the preview over here as well. Yeah. Or we can open it up in an Acrobat Reader. And you can see it's generated the cards. Let's sort of zoom out so we can see multiple pages here. So we see all the action cards. We can see the monkey cards that were generated. We can see the VP cards that were generated. And we can see the products for the layout that we just created. And they all look really good. And it does, in this case, it determines that based on the size of the layout, it will go ahead and try to fill out the page. So at 300 pixels per inch, it determines that you can do 3 across and 3 down. So it fits 9 images on each page. So you could take this and print it and cut it so that you have, real card sizes to play with. or use this as a way to submit to a printer to print your cards. Well, that just about does it for this demo. We will do further demonstrations later on. There's a lot of features that I didn't show you guys today. There are things like opacity masks, which you can use to frame components, frame elements in the layout. There are different types of brushes that you can use. It's not just a solid color brush that you can use. You can actually fill with images. You can use SVG files. You can create brushes that are gradients, and you can use that to blend images together to make really cool effects. So we'll go over some of those things in a later video. I just wanted to show you basically how the tool worked, how simple it is to do a card layout using the tool, and how easy it is to generate a deck of cards and print them out. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you get a lot of use out of Cocktail.